I'm Shannon Barrett. I'm a broadcast associate at Fox Sports, and this is Her Table.
Now you see her.
You are magnificent!
Welcome to Her Table, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the badass women who are redefining the game. Join hosts Kate Foley and Megan Martinez as they unlock the secrets of success from the brightest female pioneers in the industry.
Welcome back to Her Table. We have another amazing episode, such an inspiring story. We have Shannon on our set today to share her story with us as a broadcast associate at Fox Sports out here in Los Angeles. She produces elements for Fox NFL, NASCAR, Fox Soccer, and NASCAR on Fox.
Love it. Not only is Shannon an Emmy-winning producer, but she is also the chair of Women of Fox Sports. Love that. Shannon helped launch NFL on Fox TikTok in September of 2022 and ended the season with over 1 million followers, making them the first Fox Sports account to reach this milestone. That's so impressive.
I'm so excited to dig into Shannon's story so we can learn so much more about her journey, her career path, and how crucial her roles are within the Fox Sports network. Let's welcome Shannon to the couch. It's Her Table. Pull up a seat. Let's go. We're so excited to have you on here today. Welcome to Her Table. This is day 2 for us on our new set, and you were matching it perfectly, so I appreciate it.
So excited, on brand, yeah.
I love it. Listen, anytime anybody wants to wear pink, I'm hands down, like, new best friend. Let's love it.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
But thanks for coming in this morning.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you.
Yeah.
We're going to dig into a lot.
Sounds good. Let's go.
I'm so excited because Shannon, I worked at Fox similar time as you, but you are in the best department on Fox. On the campus. I love it. So tell us a little bit what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a broadcast associate in the studio shows department. So the main sports I'll work on, it will be NFL, just obviously, finish that season, and now NASCAR, and then we'll get into soccer. And we do a few other different things throughout the years, like we'll do the Westminster Dog Show or, some WWE type stuff. But mainly, yeah, I'm working on those sports. And what I do is, I think very similar to what you do. I do a lot of producing the aspects that will end up on like the pregame or pre-race shows, and that's mainly what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then during NFL season, I also partner with our digital group, and I do the talent TikToks for our NFL Sunday and kickoff groups. And so, yeah, but mainly I'm just producing the pregame and pre-race content.
So you wake up in the morning and they're like, okay, you're going to the Westminster Dog Show next Tuesday? Or is it like, do you control the schedule?
Sometimes it is that close, honestly.
Really?
Sometimes they will say like, yeah. I mean, last year I went to the All-Star race in Texas, and they told me 2 days before I was going that I'd be going that weekend for that race because they needed an extra producer on site.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is like, yeah, hey, can you go? But usually it's a couple weeks or even months in advance.
Like super scheduled. I would think like just based on like availability and logistics, like it's probably, there's majority is scheduled, but there's the random like okie doke of, hey, Friday, would you you like to go? Or is it like your assignment is? How does that go?
I think a lot of the times it is an assignment, and a lot of the times it's would you like to go, but you can't really say no. It's because then you might not be asked to go to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think usually you are expected to be pretty available for most work assignments unless you have scheduled PTO.
Do you feel like that's something, so you just hit on something we talk about on the show, which is if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. Or someone else is going to be sent.
Yeah.
Is that like within this industry, or is that like a self-imposed fear? Because sometimes I have it both ways, where it's like someone else has to go, but I'm also like, but if it's not me, they might be better and like them better, and then I have to go and I have to check myself and be like, no, I'm badass. That's not true. Stop lying to yourself.
Yeah, I think like it also comes with a level of seniority. I think like when you reach a certain point, like you can afford to say no to more projects and be a little more choosy. I'm not at that point. So yeah, I think it is important for me to say yes and to do most of the opportunities presented my way, because a lot of the times the opportunities I am presented are talent facing or have to do with communicating with people that we don't normally work with if I am being sent out. And that is something I do think I'm very strong at. So yeah, I think they would send me to something else if I said no, but I might not be the first choice anymore. And that is like proven.
But that's but that's important to you though, too,
Yeah.
right? Where you're like, hey, I'm taking this seriously. Like it's a commitment. We talk a lot, especially for women in sports. It's a commitment. Like you sign up for. It's like a relationship, a job, a house. It's like all of the above.
Weekend.
Yeah, it's a life,
Yeah.
and you have to sacrifice for it. And I think a lot of young ladies that want to get into sports see the glamorous side, and they don't realize the grind of it. How long was your longest trip you had to take away, like on the road?
So it would be the 2 World Cups I went on. So I went to Qatar for the Men's World Cup, and then most recently to Australia, Sydney for the Women's World Cup, which I loved. And those were each 5-week trips because the tournament is a little over a month. And then obviously you get there a few days beforehand to set up your systems, get going. There's some rehearsals. Obviously you're getting there before talent is probably getting there, and you're setting everything up. So about 5 weeks in both locations.
What's like the work-life balance? Because I know we always talk about that and like the struggle, but you're like getting set on these trips like last minute. How do you balance like having a life outside of work?
Yeah, I think it's truly a choice because I think the last couple years up until this season, I kind of block my years by NFL seasons, which you might be able to understand.
Yeah.
The last couple years, I kind of didn't have a work-life balance. I was just doing everything 24/7 because you have to pitch a lot of ideas. So I just spent a lot of time, a lot of my off time, weekends, like thinking of things to pitch. And I think this last NFL season, I was kind of thinking like, I cannot continue this way. Like, and I'm also, it's hard to be creative when you don't give your brain a break, for me at least. So I really spent some time like, do I have hobbies? I started pickleball. I started like, trying to hang out with friends like a little bit more often, more regularly scheduled. And I think that really helped me. And I was able to pitch like a couple more unique ideas that weren't very common. And I think it's really a choice. Like I had to choose to maybe sleep a little less, but have more of a life.
Right.
And
it's super easy to get lost in sports, especially because it's fast paced. It's 7 days a week. It's probably 20 hours a day. Like it's available to the consumer and they want it. And so you can get lost a lot of times. And like we say, like, I am Kate, but this is what I do. And sometimes the lines get really blurred and you have to have enough self-awareness to be like, taking a step back. But it also requires people in your life that you value to check you and be like, you need to relax for like a minute and step back and like be a human and not just be this on robot, because they see in you what you don't see in yourself. You know what I mean? So many times my friends are like, you're burned. Like you need to like take a day, watch Netflix, regroup yourself, and come back a refreshed person instead of keep dragging this dead body along with yourself.
Because it's not helpful for you, and it's also not helpful for the people around you if you're so burnt out that you can't contribute the way you would want to or the way they know you can.
Right.
So you have to take those days to turn it off. And a lot of the times, like in NFL season specifically, it is hard to turn it off. Like a lot of the things that I had to do, if there was an update on an off day, like I really should be acting on that to a certain degree. But I also like found a way to manage, like better use my time. I feel like a lot of the time I'm such a perfectionist that like sometimes I don't want to start something because I don't want to like do it wrong or also spend like 12 hours doing something that should really take me 3. So also I feel like this last season, I really, in a year, I've just been like, how can I, when I'm working, use it really wisely, be really focused and get it done faster so that I can do all these other things.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because you're able to like travel with NFL and Fox during the season. So you were, I'm assuming, able to go to the Super Bowl.
So this year, no, because Fox didn't have Super Bowl.
Gotcha.
So usually for me, I am traveling, if I am traveling to the NFC Championship. And then we also do our Veterans Day shows on site. So, so I will travel to those shows, so a handful. And then if we do have the Super Bowl, which we had last year in Phoenix, and then we'll have next year in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So I think those are the NFL shows I travel to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's been the best part about your job?
I think for me, I have loved the traveling aspect, and especially with soccer, being able to be in a different country. I never studied abroad in college, but like I almost feel like I got a little taste of that in Qatar, in Australia. And then, yeah, I think traveling has been like a really cool part for me, but also learning about all the different aspects of the industry from different departments and like different people that I definitely wouldn't have met if I wasn't in this industry. And like some of the people I work with are my closest friends. So you ask my favorite part of the job, like oftentimes it's the people and experiences.
Yeah. I think it's so important too, like to always be curious. Like that's what I find, especially is like sometimes it's like, well, I went to school and I have this degree, and it's like, no, you read a book and you passed a test, but that doesn't actually mean you're going to execute this job, honey. So let me bring you along with like how the real world works outside of a classroom.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to young girls? Like, what are they taking? What are they studying? Like, what skills do they need to have to pursue a career path that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of pursued two different career paths at this point, even though I'm like relatively new to the world. But like I would say, you know, I was in local news for 2 years. I was on a contract. I was an anchor and reporter in Medford, Oregon, a really small town on the border.
Okay.
California and Oregon. And to do something like that, I would tell someone you really have to love what you're doing, because you're going to a small town where you don't know anyone and working really, really hard with nothing. Like you're doing 8 different jobs. You're the one filming it. You're the one writing it. You're the one editing it. You're the one on air. You're the one setting up your own live shot. You're doing everything. So like if you don't love it, you are not going to like it. So I would say like it's great to try everything though. And then also like, yeah, know that you're going to work really hard if you go into this industry, whether it's news or sports. Like you probably won't have weekends. You probably, you know, are not going to be able to take time off in the major times of the year where your sport's going, and you have to be ready for that and okay with that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But also, I think what we do isn't like rocket science. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's like really lighthearted, cool stuff. So it's also like, yeah, if you want to do it, get your foot in the door and then see where it can get you, and say yes to everything until you don't want to.
Yeah. We always talk about like the sacrifices too. Like I remember last year, like working at NFL, I had to like beg my boss to let me offer my friend's wedding. I was a bridesmaid, and I basically it was during the NFL season.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't tell your friend like, hey, can you move your wedding back to, you know, like
you can,
February?
but she's probably like, you're just out.
She's like, yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
You're like your best friend of like, you know, 20 years or whatever.
It is funny because my sister just got engaged, and she was like, I know I can't have my wedding in the fall.
Yeah.
I was
Because
like, I
of
didn't
you.
ask you to do that. But she's like, but I know I can't. And I was like,
You're like,
well,
thanks
it
for
would be
that.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
It would be nice, but
spring weddings are much cuter anyways,
yeah,
right?
so much cuter.
Yeah.
But when I was a PA, I was my mentor at the company. His name's PT. He works remotely in Rhode Island usually, but he works on, you know, some of the biggest projects. And I was working with him on a project, and I was in Las Vegas for my really close friend's wedding. And he kept calling me on the weekend. I had PTO, which is rare.
Yeah.
And I also told him, like, I'm going to be at a wedding this weekend. I'm in the bridal party. Like, you cannot be hitting me up all day on Saturday, the day of the wedding.
Oh
And he calls me and he says, Shannon, are you getting married today? And I was like, no, I'm not getting married. Like, you would know if I was getting, like, you know it. And he's like, if you're not getting married, you can answer my calls.
Stop. Okay, what did you say? Pause. What was your response?
I was just like, okay, yeah, but I will be in the wedding in an hour and a half.
Oh, my God.
And my phone will not be on me. So if you call me then, I really will not answer. I won't even have my phone. But if you need to call me after, you can call me after.
Oh, my God.
But it is funny because he was like, and afterwards, you know, we talked about it, and he's like, it's football season. Did you think you would really be like off? And I was like, well, kind of. But I understand now that
I would have been
never
like,
off.
I think you should now be. If anyone asks you that question ever again, you need to be like, Yes, I am.
Yeah, I'm getting married.
Well,
Yes, I'm
I'm
at
actually
the
getting
wedding.
married. It's my third wedding now.
No, it's a very
Don't
generic.
here.
I'm at the wedding. You don't have to define which wedding. Just yes, I'm at the wedding. And then if they interpret that as yes, you're getting married, that's their story.
No,
But then
I think it is special with him because we have
you're getting married.
we have such a close relationship and like we work on so many projects together. And I think it was less of him needing me and more of him reminding me like during football season, everyone is available. Like he's taking calls, whether or not that's healthy or not.
I was going to say, is that
one thing.
Right.
However, like, you know, he's preparing me for like, what are the expectations of how the industry and how the company works right now, not how you want it to work in 20 years. How does it work right now? And let me like kind of in a way set you straight in that way
it's
with
so
like,
true.
this is how it is.
And like,
during
it's
the
not
season.
healthy, but you're right. And it's so sad because for me, I'm like, like when you're telling me this, I'm like, I mean, that does make sense because unfortunately it's like that expectation, like, all right, you have a day off, but you are still like kind of sort of on the clock. Like if they need you, you need to like be there to help, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Is
just
there, you know, there
different.
are limits I put like he's East Coast. So like when we were working on stuff like really closely every week, I was his PA on like every piece when we had Thursday night football. And he would be calling me at like 5 or 6 a.m. West Coast time because he'd be up. And at some point, I had to silence the phone because I was like, I really can't wake up like this anymore.
This is not how
and
I
it was
want it.
fine. Like it was fine, but it is funny. And he's definitely like, it's never from a place of like harshness. It's like, let me tell you the reality of the industry we're working in now. And I want to tell you this so someone else doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put you both on the spot here because I'm not in I'm in the NBA, which is blessed be. Blessed. We have 5
So
games
long,
a week,
I
and
feel
we're
like.
oh, girl, it's like
It never ends.
Yeah.
then
Even
you get like
when
the
NBA is
Olympics.
over,
You're like,
yeah.
just awesome. Yeah,
Just
sure.
looking
We
at that
don't
today,
need
yeah.
a single month without a game.
Yeah.
Never. How do you guys feel, and ladies feel like hearing that makes my heart hurt because I've been in that situation before, younger in my career, where it's like, I have to do this. And it is a place that scares me because it's not a healthy place, but it is the expectation.
Well, I think there's also like different expectations with different seasons. I think with NFL, it is obviously our biggest sport. We also have, you know, the number one watched pregame show in the country since 94. Like it's very serious. Fox's football. This is what it is. So for when we're in football season, even if you're on PTO, which is almost rarely granted anyways, if you're needed and you were working on a project and you're out of town, you like the expectation is that you would be able to make a call and like give clarification, which is what he wanted. I wasn't like doing a task. I was answering a question and like connecting him with someone that I was working with. So I think during football season, even if you're allowed like the opportunity to do some type of PTO, whatever it is, if you're called on, which they wouldn't try and call on you anyways, like you got to answer and fix it. But like in NASCAR season right now, I'm going like on PTO, I'll take a weekend or I'll go like on a trip. No one is calling me.
Yeah,
because
but I think
it's not
that's
the same
difference.
level.
That's the same. It's the difference in the industry, and that's. I mean, look, I work in the athlete side, right? So yes, we're a 24/7 business over here, and I get it. But I, how do you say to young girls that that's intimidating, right? Of like, I have to, it sounds a little bit, and you've managed it really well.
Yeah,
you have to choose, right? Yeah. And it's like, I think sometimes, especially as women in sports, it's like I love when women can lean in and say, hey, this is the expectation. This is the challenge I had. This is hard. Yeah. Like mental health is so important. And it's really hard. I mean, look, I've had guys that you're like, dude, I do not care right now. But even my dad's like, Kate, why are you answering your phone? We're on family vacation with your family at Disneyland. And I'm like, I have to take this and deal with this. Yeah. It's people not in the industry don't understand it, and it looks really asinine. No, it really does.
It does. It does.
It's,
I mean,
you're like,
I think it's
you
also
can't
like,
get PTO. That's illegal. Like people are gonna say this. So
like
I want to
live TV. There are real deadlines. It's not like you're in another industry where like the project can wait for you. Like that's you can't postpone postpone the show.
Right.
The show's gonna happen. Yeah. If you were working on something and now you're going off for the weekend and someone needs to have a question answered, I'm going to answer the question. But I think, I would say that, there are boundaries that you can put in place. There are boundaries that people do. And I think like depending on the sport we're working on or the event we're working on, whatever it may be, depending on that, people won't even call you because they want you to take your vacation. They won't call you unless they need to in my group. So I'm not going to, I'm going to Italy in May, for example, for 2 weeks. No one is going to call me there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to have to do anything there. But if I happen to go during NFL season,
that's when it is.
I'm going to get a call.
But hey, you're an Emmy Award winner. Like that's, it's really cool.
I just think sometimes it's such a misconception of like how much work goes into these things. Like the consumer sees things and it's like, that doesn't look hard. I mean, look at this show. There's like 6 people doing the show and everyone's like, it's not hard. They're just probably in like some basement. I'm like, no, we're in like literally a full set in California. But they don't understand what they see has a process in place. How for young girls, right, that are like, okay, I want to go into sports. I know you are working on this too of like, I want to go into sports. I need to balance my life. What do you balance the insanity with to balance? What's the insanity against the calm? Like, what is your solace in the middle? Some people do like hot yoga. Some people do this. I'm like, I'm trying to learn because I need to find one. So that's what I can't do that. I cannot do that.
I wish I could say that.
Your brain doesn't stop, does it? Mine does not. I
think it's always kind of going. If I'm a big like reality TV fan, so like I will turn my brain off when I watch that, and I think that's really good for me to do.
What's your favorite reality TV show right now?
That's hard to say. It's actually kind of like a running joke. I watch like 20 shows simultaneously. Survivor just restarted this last week. Very into that. Love The Bachelor. Love Island. Like all like the really crappy dramatic shows I'm into because it's not my drama. I enjoy watching.
She makes fun of some like, oh, Love Island, Love is Blind, all these shows, but it's like this drama that I see it and I'm like, I don't want that in my life. So I'm gonna watch it from afar.
I'm gonna live through someone else's. Someone else can have this problem. It's not me. So
No, there's that, and then I'm very obsessed with my nephew, and my family is like 30 to 40 minutes from where I live now. So I'll go home and like hang out with them, and that's always very grounding. I think right now I'm just trying to create more hobbies for myself so that I can have like things that I'm doing outside that, are healthy for me. And also, I can kind of turn my brain off and
be the opposite. That's what I found is like, it's so fast paced that oftentimes you need something that's like just mindless and thoughtless to like really give you that turn off. I don't have the ability to turn off. Like my team is always like, Kate, like just, I'm like, you can God didn't give me that gift. I cannot turn my brain. I go to yoga and I'm just like list. Like you can't. I'm like, this is pointless. Like I might as well just do the list than sit here in yoga and be miserable. I'm like, is this painful? And I'm still doing the list. So let's get rid of the painful part and just do the list. But what for you is a skill that's so important for you to have? Like we talked a lot yesterday on some shows about how what is taught in school oftentimes lacks the application in the real world. What for you are some skills that, you find are important for yourself to have, but also that you look to develop or find in other people?
I would say problem solving is a huge one. Being able to assess a situation and understand like where a fire may start there, either from experience or you just seeing that there is a gap there, I think is really important. The ability to like just get shit done. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Some people can be given a task and they like don't even know where to start, or they don't know who to ask to like get advice for it, and it's like, okay, well, it's going to take you like way longer and you're probably not even going to do it to the level that it needs to be accomplished at. So I would say like finding problems, figuring out a way to do it, strategizing, and like also just like learning how to talk to people. Is a huge thing.
I think public speaking is one of the most underserved classes.
I agree.
And debate.
I
think are the two classes I think should be like included in like general ed in every college kid, because just because you can pass a test doesn't mean you can communicate effectively with a person at the level they need.
Absolutely.
And then you're like, you can't talk to people like that. You cannot say that. Like, you cannot act like that. And then it's like, why? And it's like, hello, do you hear yourself?
Yeah.
No, but they don't, because they don't have a concept of like what is real world, especially in sports and in leadership. It's like, you don't get to like, you don't get to answer your phone when your boss calls, yo.
Yeah.
No.
I know.
Like, you don't.
Yeah.
We're not friends.
Yeah.
Like, we're good. And I don't answer that when my friends call either. But like, if you want to work in this world, you have to show up in a capacity that relates with the job you want, not who you are.
Yeah.
But they don't teach that. They don't. It's that human dynamic that you're like missing.
It's definitely the human dynamic. And I think like being in person, being able to pull up the phone instead of shooting a text and like talking it through.
Yes.
Networking is so huge.
Yes.
And I think being able to talk, learn people, be genuinely interested in what other people do and like learn what they do so that when it comes time, if there is an issue, you know who to go to, you know what they can do, and you can provide the same thing back. And I just think that, that people skill is so undervalued, and also it's not something that is necessarily like people know that they need to do.
No.
And the public speaking thing is huge too. I think I read something a while ago. It's like 9 out of 10 people, it's like their biggest fear is public speaking or like speaking in front of a group.
Yeah.
And I love public speaking. Like I did that a lot. And when you talk about debate too, like I was in student government in college, and like that was my thing. And I love doing that. And I think it served me so well in my professional career, and for people that aren't comfortable like being honest or direct about things, not in a way that's offensive.
Yeah.
But if you can't honestly communicate and like talk to people, it's going to be a lot harder for you in this industry.
No one's going to develop you. Yeah. They're going to be like, too much, too hard.
Yes.
Next. And I think, it's funny, especially in sports, the industry you're both in, where you're constantly pitching things. Like even for me on the athlete side, where we're having to develop narratives and storylines and ideas to then talk with brands about, or like that's the right fit commercial, that's not the right fit commercial.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to communicate. That's why I think debate's so hard. And it's beautiful, because in debate, you're not actually believing what you're debating. You might not even care what your assignment is.
Just trying to be persuasive.
But you have to put the facts together to go make an effort to say, hey, this is the right choice. Right or wrong, I love chocolate milk or I hate chocolate milk. I'm going to get you to drink chocolate milk.
Yeah.
And it's like hostage negotiation style stuff where you're like, my boss thinks this is the dumbest thing. And he's going to keep thinking that unless I can convince him that maybe he needs to look at this just a different way.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what the sports industry is, because there's so many different narratives, stories, athletes, engagement. And then you have to articulate that not only for your intergroup to understand it, but for the general consumer to then understand what you're saying too. It's so deep, and it's not like, what's that class called? Like, I'm gonna write that class. Like, I don't know, but it's not there. So I'm like, somebody needs to come up with this class that is just we can just call it like human people skills. People skills 101. 101. This lady doesn't like you. Find a way to find common ground with her in the next hour. Because your boss isn't going to like you, but you got to work with them. Figure it out.
And like learning how to take critical feedback too, because none of us are perfect, and there's always areas you can improve in. And like I've definitely been given some feedback for like the style in which like my face naturally sits, or like
oh really?
How
resting bitch face?
Exactly.
Or just my face says what my brain's thinking.
Yeah,
that's
can't
control
a problem
it.
too that I've worked on. But sometimes like I'm a very direct person too, and even though I'm not saying it in an aggressive like way, like it could come off that way in a high intensity moment, and I've definitely received that feedback like earlier on in my career, and like actively worked to adjust the way I am, and I've gotten really positive feedback from like the growth there, and like it's not fun
It
to
sucks.
get that. But if you're not willing to take it and improve on it and grow, like you're just going to stay where you are.
Yeah.
But I think the flip side of that too is sometimes like I've had some people on my staff before that get really offended when I'm direct, and I'm like, that's just me. Like I don't have time to hold your hand, rub your back, and explain to you why you just fucked up.
Yeah.
And so I actually asked one of my employees the other day, I said, I need to understand how you best receive feedback.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And he said, what do you mean? And I'm like, clearly no one's had this conversation with you. There's 3 versions. There's the rub your back, coddle you. There's the, okay, we messed up. How are we going to fix it? And then there's the MFer that needs to be told, like, you F this up.
Yeah.
Fix it. Everyone receives it differently. And if you're not communicating with them in the way that they understand, you're talking to a wall.
Right.
Yeah.
But people have to be self-aware enough to know that, like, what is my feedback style or what is my communication style?
They may say, oh, you can be direct. And
I know, and then they're like,
and they don't.
they're in the HR office, like, she was so mean to me. Oh my God,
Yes.
Stacey. I'm like, oh my God, you told me to tell you what I thought. I didn't know you needed option 1. Like, I didn't know.
But that's all, like, I feel like those are all very, like, executive qualities where, like, you can assess a person's personality. You get into situations with them and you learn what is going to motivate them.
Yes.
Sometimes tough love really motivates people.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes it makes them want to quit.
Or makes someone a hermit, and then they are like, and then you're awkward because you're like, dude, I'm just.
And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to be. I do think it's easier for direct people to be in the industry, but I don't think it's impossible if you're not naturally that way to still be very successful.
Yeah.
But I think knowing how best to communicate with people, and sometimes like you're not having the conversation of how best do you want it. You just have to like kind of
start have time for that.
Getting it.
Yeah.
And then, I communicate with different people very differently.
Well, for you, I was going to, like, this kind of translates to what I was going to ask you anyway, because I think this is so cool. You are part of the Women of Fox Sports, like social media, and I like follow their account. I like always see like all these stuff. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But you're like a chair for them. I think like it's so important, and like we talk about this all the time, like championing women, and like that is like a leadership role.
Yeah.
So can you kind of like go over what you do there and like how important it is to just kind of be supportive of women in the sports industry?
But what is this we're talking about for those of us like me that don't know?
Sure. So
this is?
It's an employee resource group, which means it's all volunteer. So I don't get paid extra to do it. The Women of Fox Sports represents all the women in, any remote position in LA and Charlotte and Chicago and New York, all the places we have physical offices. And then my role is really to lead the strategy and programming and like manage the budget behind everything that we're doing in our term and to hire the board. And when I became co-chair, I also rearranged the structure of the board because I didn't think it was necessarily working the way it should be at that point. So I kind of reorganized that structure, hired a new board of people. But we do a lot of programming. So events will bring speakers in, we'll provide networking events. We will do surveys, headshot trucks for people to get new stuff like that. Variety of ways for people to connect and to also benefit. We try and do that in all of our hubs. So it's really like another job, honestly. Like it's for me, it's an extra like 15 hours a week of volunteer work that I'm doing. But I find it very important because, one, for me personally, there wasn't a position for me to show any like executive leadership type traits in the current role I'm in, like in my official capacity at Fox Sports. So I was like, how can I start to show people that I can do this, that I'm good at it? And I was like, oh, I can do this. So that's kind of why I've been doing that. But also, when I started getting really involved with Fox, COVID started up like maybe a year later. So there weren't that many opportunities to network with other people and to meet other women in the group. And there were no in-person events, So I kind of wanted to restart that up.
Yeah.
And we've done that, and we've done a really good job of it and connected a lot of people. And I feel really good about that.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for women to feel a safe space. Like, that's why I love this show, because it's just a safe space to share and create a conversation.
Yeah.
Because that sometimes, and we're all getting there, but there's not enough women in leadership positions to be able to create that safe space. And then oftentimes you're having men have conversations that are not relatable to a female employee or a female executive. To have a difficult conversation, or it's tiptoed around. Like, it's all that unspokenness of like, what do we say? How do we say it? What should we do? If I stand up for myself, am I bossy? If I cry, am I emotional? Like, what is that? And I think it's so important for women to have a space to ask those questions, to get knowledge and experience and compassion and empathy back from someone else. Like, hey, I've been there. It's going to suck, but here's a tool to help you get through it, or here's something I learned, or looking back, I wish I had kind of scenario. And I think those programs, we need more of them, especially in sports, because there are a lot of women in sports, but we all still feel isolated a lot because we're traveling. Like, when you travel, who's on your travel team? Are you the only girl on your travel team? Woman? Shouldn't say girl, sorry.
No, usually if I'm on a trip, at least for NFL, our production coordinators are all women. Along with me being on the road a lot, there's also like 2 other women in our group that I would say are on the road a lot with me. So I would say that it is mostly men, but I'm usually not the only one on the trip.
Yeah. And do you feel like you guys kind of connect, or do you try and like, do you make like a little pact, or are you guys like, okay? Because I would imagine when you're not together, you're probably with the same groups of people at different places, and you're like, oh, how's Bob today? Well, Bob's on one today.
No, I don't think it's something where like we have an extra pact for, but it's probably like I would never talk negatively about like the few women in my group. It's just like a choice I've made not to do with like any male call. Like, I will only speak highly, even if I don't totally agree with the way they're going about something or doing. Like, I refuse. I won't do it.
Is that coming from a place of like experience, or did you have a negative experience and you're like, I don't want that, and this is the path you're on, or have you always been that way?
I think that I've always been that way. But I also think that when there are only a few of whatever demographic that is in a space, like, oftentimes it can be competitive, and I just refuse to engage in anything that's ever felt competitive in that way. For me, like, there isn't one spot. You don't have to like fight someone else or bring someone else down to get to where you need to be. And honestly, I think it's a bad look. And I think it's also very obvious sometimes to other people, whether it's like the other woman or like the guys around that situation. And I won't do it.
Which is hilarious, because she loves Love Island and all the drama-filled,
I do love
backstabbing shows that are like, move ahead.
I'm like the same way though. Like with you, like when you're telling me, I'm like, like I don't engage in that stuff, and I feel the same way, where it's like maybe we see that so much on TV, we get that our like fill of that, and then we like stay professional, like don't bring ourselves down to talk about somebody else, because I do think that there are women, that there are women that do. I've worked with them before, but they'll like go out of their way to kind of put you down to make themselves look better. And I think it always comes back.
I think it's always too, like, I feel sometimes that there are guys that try to put something upon you that might not be you. And like, oh, I wonder if she'll go for this, or if we start this conversation or whatever, because one, either they're not self-aware themselves. Or 2, it's an opportunity for them to use it against you. And I think one thing I've like cognizantly tried to do the last couple of years is, regardless of how you treat me, you will not trigger me to become someone I'm not. I don't get it right all the time. Sometimes I'm like, damn, you got me. And I have to be like, I fell for it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if that, like, I've mastered if that makes sense to you. Yes. Like, I'm not even going to engage. Like, it's like muted. Like, okay, yes, and other than like the like, you might be right, but I'm not going to give you the time of day to say I was this way or it was your perception of it, because it's too easy, I feel like, to point a finger at a woman and be like, she was the drama, than it is to be like, no, it was these 5 dudes sitting here and I listened to it and I was there and they were like, you know, high school girling it out right now.
Yeah.
But it's because you're the girl, it's easy to be like, well, you must have engaged in that. And I hate it because it's 9 times out of 10, especially for me, it's the boys.
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all are some drama-filled live TV over here. And now I'm just like, I'm going to watch. Yep.
Yeah.
Live watching.
I mean, it's an interesting dichotomy, too, because I think, like, for me personally, I do feel like I need to have a strong opinion.
Yes.
Like, if I would want to, which I do, obviously want to rise up and wherever I am, you do need to have a strong opinion. You do need to be direct, but that's often, like, you know, not the way that someone may have been used to working with women in the past. And
I think sometimes it's perceived, like, people use it as an opportunity to like be like, oh, I always joke, like, I'm not bossy, I just have leadership skills.
Yeah.
Like,
Which I think is
you
great.
define it as this, I look at it as like, well, you don't. Like, what do you want me to do? But I think it's also, as leadership continues to change and culture continues to change, it gives a space for a different way to look at things or approach things, especially in sports and how demanding it is. And I mean, I have been through in mine where it's like, oh, you have kids? How do you're going to, I'm like, dudes bring their kids to all kinds of things.
yeah.
And then I look at women's basketball and they're taking their kids into games that they're then playing in. And then they're, you know, whether that's pumping or whatever in the middle of these things. And I'm just like, you guys don't have any of these problems.
Yeah.
But then we had a guest on. She told us it wasn't until like 2 years ago that WNBA had maternity leave.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is that legal?
I
Like,
know.
what? But she's like, yeah, up until like a couple years ago. And I don't remember the exact date. So I hope no one's like going to come for me and be like, you're wrong. It was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was very
But
recent.
yeah.
It was more recently than it needed to be.
Yeah.
That wasn't a change. And it's like, okay. Because I think in sports, you travel a lot. Like, I travel a lot. You travel. It's like, you know, it's a balance of it's always the assumption of, well, how can you do that if you have a family or you have this? I'm like, plenty of people have a family and do this and they make it work.
Yeah.
Why, because I'm a female, are you going to sit here and be like, well, how do you do it? I had a coach last night ask me how old I was. I'm recruiting one of his players. Would you ever ask a
Why would that
man?
be relevant?
Yeah, why would you even
100%.
ask that? Yeah.
But I had to remind myself that, one, you would know. My gut instinct was, you would never ask a man this question ever. But you're asking me. And then I was like, but if I say that to you, then I'm giving you a reason to say, well, you were aggressive or offensive or whatever. So I was like, well, would you like, how old are you? Like, it's like, I just flip it back.
Yeah,
like,
that's so smart.
you know what I mean? But it's like,
Yeah.
I want to be offended and I am offended, but I know that if I come across as offended, now is not the time to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot more like circles that we have to do in our brains to navigate situations.
Yes.
But I will say, like, even though, you know, my group is like definitely male dominated, like you mentioned, I have never felt like I need to be one of the boys to like accomplish what I'm doing or to fit in. Like, I've never been like kind of pushed to like get into that box, and I don't feel like I have to. So I feel like that's a positive.
No, I know. 100%.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's authentically yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we continue to find is the common thread here is the authenticity of yourself allows you to be yourself. And you can't use it against you if you're constantly the same person every time. It's like, this is me. I'm not changing because I'm in this room or I'm in that room or this setting or this person. Just consistently the same version of yourself.
Yeah.
And people tend to respect it. What advice would you give to a young girl that wants to be in your shoes? She looks at you and says, I want to be Shannon. What advice would you give her?
Yeah, I would say, like, I would definitely recommend, like, doing internships, like, in the fields that you're interested in. So you see how it works. You see the type of people that work there. You get an idea for how the days are run. And, like, you can make a decision from there if you want to do it. I would say also, like, develop that tough, thick skin, like, as soon as you can. It's only helpful for you to do it that way, and to, you know, work really hard and ask a lot of questions and be willing to do whatever to kind of get in the door. And then from there, I think the hard work and when you fix problems and put yourselves in different opportunities, like they do come back.
Yeah.
They
And
do
I
come
think
back
it's
for you.
okay for young women and even young men, if you don't know, just raise your hand and say, I don't know, but I'd love to learn.
Yes.
I cannot take another single person that's like, oh yeah, I know how to do it. And then it's a complete cluster.
Yeah.
And then you're like, dude, you have no idea what you're doing. I wish you would have just said, I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like the pressure to have to know it all in sports, because sports is so fluid and evolving.
Yeah.
You didn't know everything. I don't know everything. I still am learning. I didn't know what this group was. Like, you're learning, but you have to be able
I know
to
everything.
receive. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be willing to like sit with yourself and say, I'm vulnerable enough to say I don't know how to do it, but I'm open enough to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that goes so far, especially in sports, because you don't know what it takes to do all of these things that you see on TV or you hear about. And so being open and honest to that, to say, hey, like, I want to learn.
Yeah. I think there's also like information is so readily available and like online too. Like you got to do your homework.
Yes.
As well. Like there are a lot of like when people say there are no dumb questions, sometimes there are.
What's a dumb question? Tell us, Shannon, what's a dumb question you got lately?
No, I mean like for example, like if I'm working on NASCAR, I should know who the talent are on our shows.
Yes.
If you asked me who the play-by-play person is, like you should really know if you're watching it every week and it's readily available online and you can research it. You should know that's not really a question you should be asking me.
Yes.
I mean, there are tons of questions you can ask me about things you don't know and things that aren't right there for you to look at.
Yeah,
but
the
if
general public cannot find. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can find that information, it's kind of on you to do it. And if you're not doing it, it kind of shows me that you're not willing to put in the work and to be as prepared as you can to be in this role.
I think that's so like important too for like women. Like, you know, I know you can definitely relate, like always being prepared with like your pitches or whatever you're, you know, coming into your meetings. And like too, for like women, I feel like it's so important. Like maybe you didn't play the game of football, but like there will be like times where they'll have like, do you need like show this player, like let's talk about this play. And if you don't know a certain like run option, whatever it is, look it up and just like honestly look at diagrams, look at YouTube videos. Because you don't ever want to come across like, I don't know what that play is, and asking the guys. Like, I just feel like that's such a like important quality to have and to kind of like know your ish and like be prepared.
I totally agree, but I also think like, for example, the person I did graphics with this year, Bryce, he's one of my like direct coworkers there. Like I ask him what I would consider like dumb questions all the time. And we help each other in a lot of ways where like there are things that he doesn't know that I answer all the time or I can like advise on and vice versa. And I think even if it is like a guy, which it most likely might be because we work with so many men, like knowing who will have your back and not like use it against you is really good too. Like there are people I probably wouldn't ask like some questions to, not because they're bad people, but I feel like they'll probably talk some crap about it after.
Yeah, exactly.
But like also knowing like who's on your side, who are your people, having that trust is really important to build in any group. So yeah, I feel like I can ask questions that I wouldn't want publicly known that I'm asking to a lot of people in my group. Yeah, that care about me and care about my growth, and I feel the same way about them, and I have a lot of experience in different parts of the company that they don't, that they ask me that might be considered a dumb question in that way. And
and that's a culture thing too. I think the great thing is when you can identify someone who's really good at what they do. Sometimes, especially in secondary roles that aren't public facing, they don't oftentimes get to feel empowered or seen or valued. And so sometimes I'm always like, okay, I don't know what that is. Please tell me. Like our creative guy, I'm like, how do you do that? Or I'm like, why is this text box here? This is annoying me. I'm mad at you. Get this off the graphic. And he's like, well, it has to be here because I need this and I need that. And then he feels empowered that like what he's doing is important.
Yeah.
As opposed to I'm just like, I hate the text box. Get rid of it. I have to give him the space, to do that. And then by doing that, you're empowering them. And then when they see an opportunity to empower you, you can only hope that they look back and lean in the same way you did. And it's not in a threatening way. It's like, look, she wanted to learn. She's asking not to get me in trouble or I messed up. It's like, she wants to know.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a cutthroat business sometimes that you have to take the human side of it and be like, hey, like, dude, what does this mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone tell me. I will fully say I don't know. Tell me. And they're like, yes, someone cares about why the text box is on the graphic.
About this very specific thing I'm very passionate about.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's wild. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We loved having you. This is so sweet. I love it. And I'm going to see you in Phoenix in a couple weeks.
Yeah. See you
in the pit.
Yes.
With our headphones on.
Yes. Noise canceling headphones. For sure.
Watching the moving recliners.
Yeah. It's a vibe. It can be a vibe.
No,
Can't knock it till you try it. You know?
I'm with it.
Motorized recliner, beer in the hand, American flag coming out of that. I mean,
and as much Levi jeans as you can find.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
NASCAR, from NFL to NASCAR.
Yep.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Of course. Megan, another phenomenal guest on the couch on set at her table today.
Shannon was amazing. She even matched our pillows.
I mean, look, she said be prepared, do your research, and she clearly did the research and found out that we were pink.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Me
One
too.
more person in the world I'm converting to wear pink more often. I think my plan is working. The universe is conspiring for us to have more people wearing pink.
Yeah.
She honestly was so inspiring.
Yeah, she really was.
Like her career and her dedication to it. She probably might have a little bit more dedication than me some days, and her commitment to just what she wants to become and how far she wants to go in this space was really cool for her to talk about. She did so much stuff in college. Like, I was just trying to survive and get to class and get out. I wasn't trying to be extra. I mean, but to do all of those things in college, between being on the student body government, president at her college, creating a jobs plan in college, like. Again, I was just trying to get to class at 8 a.m. when I got home at 5 a.m. So I wasn't trying to be all of that.
Yeah. I think it's just so cool for her, too. Like, I've been following Women of Fox Sports, you know, I work there. But for her to be a co-chair on that, with that organization, and for her to, like, bring it back. When I was there, it was during COVID, so I wasn't, you know, really affiliated with it. I just think that's so special. And it's such a vital part of companies to have something like that, where you're empowering women, you're championing other women. You're being supportive. You're just like having a group where women feel comfortable to talk to you and kind of have those leadership roles. And I just think that's such an important, you know, important organization to have with companies. And I think that's amazing that she has done so much with it.
Well, and it's really cool, too, that she took that upon herself. Like, she realized, like, I have great leadership qualities. I might not get to demonstrate them in the role I'm hired for. So how can I make a path for myself to show that to leadership and not minimize myself? And so she took it, she built it, and she's doing it. I think the other really fascinating thing to me was all the places that she's traveled to.
Yeah.
And to hear her talk about the commitment. When I worked at Nike, we would be gone for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, and it is rough. She did go to Qatar.
Yeah.
That's an interesting place to go.
Yeah.
But, you know, she went to Australia, probably little boomerangs, little, you know, koalas. You know, I'm sure she had a great time. But she's created a little family dynamic within the group that she works with and within the industry. And I really love to see women be able to lean in for each other, but then also learn, educate, empower the next them, which I think she is hands down doing every single day.
She is. It was such an honor having her on the show. I can't wait to see what she does next.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed Shannon's story just as much as we did. Such powerful information right here coming to you from her table once again.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let us know who you'd like to have on her table next. And we'll see you guys next time.